Hello Summoners, and welcome to another episode of ProGuides OP Picker Ban, now on patch 10.17. These are champions that are a bit overtuned for one reason or another, so they have the power to affect your games more than they otherwise should. In light of that, you'll be wanting to either deny their existence altogether or secure them for your own team. Before that though, today's question of the day is, if you could ban 2 OP champs instead of 1, what else would you ban in your games? I ban Katarina every game, but I'd love a second ban to get rid of Vladimir too. I just tilt the second I see him locked in, because I know if we don't win by 30 minutes, the game is almost impossible to win. And one last thing, be sure to visit us at ProGuides.com. We have the best roster of coaches, top-tier live classes from instructors like Mike Young and Zyrene, and courses covering a variety of roles and champs from your favorite pro players like Double Lift. We want to help you guys improve where you're lacking and polish up where you're already strong so you can reach your season goals. Now, let's get into this video, shall we? To start things off, we'll be looking at Garen in the top lane. As far as laning goes, he's incredibly dominant with a lot of good matchups, a few okay ones, and pretty much none that are bad.
Fear not, I'm coming.
Against melee champs, he wins pretty much every trade with his E, and if the opponent even thinks about moving up to farm, his Q's movement speed helps him close the gap. And thanks to the silence, they can't even fight back with their own abilities. Even in ranged matchups, his passive regen in conjunction with Doran's shield gives him crazy sustain, letting him shrug off harass until the squishy ranged champ overextends and he can go for an all-in on them with his Q's surprising burst of speed. W's passive turns farm into free tank stats, enabling Garen to build glass cannon while being as durable as any other top laner, while its active is what enables Garen to team fight as a juggernaut. While most other juggernauts are hard countered by being CC'd and kited, timing Garen's W active right lets him shrug off almost all CC, and along with its damage reduction, allows him to push right through to the enemy's backline and shred their carries in a fight. His ult serves as a devastating execute to any target that survives his QE combo. Not even tanks can stand up to the massive true damage they take if they are already low on HP. Garen's kit itself is really strong, and thanks to its incredibly low skill floor, anyone can pick him up and start abusing him. With that in mind, definitely consider doing so for yourself, or deny him from the enemy team.
Violence is a means to an end.
Where Garen's appeal is his simple run-at-them playstyle, Camille is for the player that wants to look flashy with mechanical outplays. Her laning is won through quick, precise trades, using passive shields, Q's empowered auto attacks, and Grasp of the Undying to outshine the other laner in short bursts. W's outer edge lets you heal while dealing damage, so even without scrapping with the other laner, you can win the HP game. If you want to get even more aggressive, E's stun and attack speed buff let you fight longer, more extensive trades once you're confident you can take them. But make sure to not use E overzealously, since it's your escape tool in case the enemy jungler shows up. Once you're ready to take an all-in to kill the other lane, Camille's ult is perfect for forcing it. Your target couldn't run even if they tried. Outside of lane, Camille's focus is split pushing and making picks. In a side lane, not many champs can deal with a 3 or 4 item Camille. Even tanks get melted by her Q's true damage. Just like in lane, try to save E until you know you're 100% safe to use it, since it's your escape tool if the enemy sends multiple players in an attempt to stop your split. When it's time to take a team fight around objectives, you don't want to straight up run at the enemy in 5v5. Use E to engage on and ult to isolate any enemy carry that overextends even just a bit. Making a play like this at the later stages of the game should all but guarantee a win. Camille has held down a spot as a solid top laner in the higher ranks for quite some time now. While her win rate does fall pretty hard the lower you look, that doesn't mean she's impossible to pull off. You'll just have to put in more effort to practice her somewhat difficult mechanics and combos. And if you find that intimidating to do alone, one of our coaches at ProGuides.com would be happy to help. Here's a quick recap of those top lane builds. Moving into the jungle, our first pick is Hecarim. Between the ghost buffs and his buff on 10.16, he's doing super well in the jungle, and the 10.17 partial revert won't be doing much to stop him.
The grave calls.
His Q gives him an insanely quick jungle clear, and in teamfights, it does tons of damage on its own, while also proccing Triforce repeatedly, giving him unbearable damage output. With Conqueror, Death's Dance, and his W's draining aura, Hecarim heals so much in fights that it can seem like his health bar doesn't budge. E gives Hecarim a way to close the gap before slamming into his opponent for huge damage, or to gallop away from danger when caught out in a bad place. His ult is great for forcing ganks thanks to its ability to fear an enemy into his allies, and in teamfights, landing a huge ult can be a devastating blow to the enemy team as they scatter and their carries are picked off. A relatively simple but useful combo is to use E to ramp up movement speed, ult to split the enemy, and use E's ramming attack to further shove a feared target away from their allies and into your own. The hardest part about Hecarim is learning how to get fed early, but once you do, he snowballs out of control and can easily carry a game, so pick him up or put him down. As a quick side note, Cinder Hulk is an optional item. Some players just sit on Talisman or upgrade to Skirmisher Saber, that's Red Smite, but you can also upgrade to Cinder Hulk after Trinity Force if you feel like you need the relatively cheap tank stats. If a rampaging centaur isn't your thing, definitely give Vi a try.
I'm doing this my way.
Her passive gives her a healthy jungle clear, and in duels, it helps her shrug off her opponent's damage, assuming they can even fight back. Q is the hardest part of her kit, and that's not saying much. Just aim in the direction of your opponent and let it rip. The gap closer and ensuing huge burst of damage is Vi's bread and butter and sets her up to pummel opponents. Q's burst chunks squishy targets hard, but when dealing with tankier targets, her W's 3-hit passive helps to shred them, thanks to the armor reduction and max HP damage it deals. E has two primary functions, serving as AoE clear in the jungle and as an empowered auto attack reset when beating up champs, but really good Vi players can sometimes pull off kills from range by autoing a tower or minion and getting kills with E's cone of damage. While the rest of her kit is great for dueling people willing to fight, most will run away, and that's where Vi's ult comes in. The point-and-click ability locks down even the most slippery opponents, and is a foolproof way to pull off ganks on any enemy that is even slightly overextended. When coupled with laners that can either burst or follow up with their own CC, like Annie and LeBlanc, Vi's ult should guarantee kills every time it's up. Once it's a bit later down the line and you have a couple of items completed, finding a carry alone should result in a free pick every time. Before we move on, here are the jungle builds again for you. Now onto the mid lane. Before his release, we predicted Yone would be an OP picker ban in our last video, and our opinion hasn't changed. His laning is strong, his skirmishing stronger, and his team fight is absolutely insane.
You think I am the one to fear?
Q is the bread and butter here, giving good wave clear and dueling power, and the third hit allowing you to go in for more aggressive trades or setting up jungle ganks. His W and E give him the ability to take favorable trades. In his worst lanes where that's not enough, swapping his keystone to fleet footwork lets him scale up to his 2-item power spike. Ult into third Q can deal immense damage while CCing for quite some time, and sets up the rest of his team for success. How can a champ with hyper carry damage, crazy setup for the rest of his team, and the ability to escape back to safety not be an S-tier pick? If you haven't picked up on this incredibly broken mid laner, visit us at ProGuides.com and let us help you learn him. He's absolutely pick or ban at this point, and he probably won't be anything less than the top 5 mid laner for quite some time. No stranger to our lists, we're labeling Fizz as an OP on this patch.
Wanna see a trick?
His point-and-click trading make him annoying to deal with even in the early stages of the game. Q can be used to go in or out depending on your positioning, and with W's empowered auto damage can chunk your opponent as you E away, avoiding all damage and leaving them wondering what counterplay even is. Or if you're fed, E can just be used to further your chase and slow your opponent as you send them back to base. Fizz really comes online with his ult. Even early game, hitting it at max range pretty much guarantees that you can one-shot any squishy opponent that can't negate it. And once you net a few kills and start to snowball, it's pretty much impossible for the other team to stop you. The aforementioned point-and-click damage makes piloting Fizz a breeze, and once you reach around 3 or 4 items, you don't even need to land an ult to burst down any carries unfortunate enough to be caught out by you on their own. Many assassins have it rough when it comes to team fighting, but proper usage of E lets Fizz dive in and get out unscathed. And with Zanya's to stall for cooldowns to come back, he has no problem with taking 5v5 fights. So if an assassin with good laning and 0 counterplay one-shot sounds fun to you, give him a try.
Have you seen my bear Tivers?
Considered one of the easiest champs in the game, Annie rounds out our list of mid laners. In early lane, her passive stun can be useful for small trades and setting up jungle ganks, and later lets her lock down her targets as she bursts them into oblivion. With Q's mana and cooldown refund, last hitting couldn't be easier, and when it's time to go in for trades or you're getting a gank, the point-and-click ability allows you to hit your stun no matter what. W's AoE cone lets you soften the wave for Q last hits. Timing E at the right time can help massively reduce incoming damage, but its primary function is as a speed boost that can help you close the gap on enemies that end up out of position, or help you dodge incoming skill shots and escape ganks. Annie's icon alt, Tibbers, gives her the burst to one-shot pretty much any champ that isn't a tank, and when used with Flash, can be used to make game-winning catches or even land huge stuns in teamfights that massively chunk out the enemy team and set them up to be swept by your allies. Here are those mid lane builds again in case you missed them the first time. Kaisa has received a few buffs since the start of the season, and the 10.17 buffs will be pushing her up and over the top.
I like it here. I just might stay.
Thanks to her passive, her flexibility as both a magic and physical damage threat means she is pickable in any team comp and can deal with any type of threat she needs to. What more can you ask for than a hyper carry that can build Zanyas or Banshees if they really have to without much of a loss of their damage output? The 5-hit part of her passive gives not only a nice ramping on hit damage effect, but also a huge burst of magic damage on the last hit, allowing Kaisa to shred and execute even the beefiest of targets with her mixed damage. Q helps shove the wave and secure last hits, and once evolved, gives a huge burst of damage when using it while trading into your opponents. W can be used to proc passive faster or as a scouting tool to check bushes or objectives. E, which is getting buffed in this patch, grants Kaisa attack speed to ramp up her damage to hyper carry levels, and once evolved, grants her a stealth to escape anyone trying to dive her in the back line. If you use it right, you can even break your opponent's ankles as you fake one direction, stealth, and turn the other way. Using Kaisa's ult is the hardest part in a team fight. You can use it to dodge incoming threats, dive in with your team on the enemy backline, or even to reposition over walls. Think about how you're going to use it ahead of time so you're ready for whatever the enemy team throws at you. Kaisa is definitely going to be back in the S tier now, so make sure to either pick her up or ban her out.
Prepare yourself, you face an Iceborne.
Ashe has pretty much been A or S tier for all of Season 10, and that isn't changing yet. Her passive built-in slow provides immense utility, allowing her to make opponents unable to run away, or giving her the ability to kite as she needs. Q's attack speed increase and flurry of empowered autos give Ashe one of the highest DPS outputs in the game, melting all targets from carries to tanks in seconds. Her W makes Ashe one of the most oppressive lane bullies in the bottom lane, providing both wave clear and poke as the cooldown gets lower and lower with levels. E can be used to scout globally, revealing the enemy jungler's path and letting your team adapt as they need to. Or it can be used to make sure you aren't being lane ganked as you start to push out a lane. And slows and global vision aren't enough in the utility department. Ashe is one of the few ADCs that can make picks or engage a fight thanks to her ult. So hyper carry damage and insane ability. Do you really have a reason to not play this broken ADC? If you still refuse, consider banning her so you don't have to be on the receiving end of this powerhouse. Before we move on to our last couple of champs, here are the ADC builds one more time. Now for the supports. While most enchanters heal and shield their carries to keep them alive, Lulu goes beyond that, with her ability to buff them to carry games even harder.
Come on, you. Let's dance. Ha!
Sure, her Q's slow can be nice to peel threats, and her E and ult can definitely keep an ally alive, but what gives her the advantage over the other Ardent supports is her passives on hit damage and W's attack speed, which can both be granted to an allied hyper carry, giving them insane damage output. Aside from buffing her carries, Lulu can use her abilities in other creative ways. Her W is one of the best tools in the game when it comes to shutting down a fed enemy carry. Of course, there are abilities like Malzahar's ult that are point and click that render an opponent unable to move, but with CDR, Lulu's W is on a pretty short cooldown and can be used a few times in the course of a single fight. While her ult is great to keep an ADC alive, sometimes it can be used to CC the enemy team, following up on something like a Malphite or Hecarim engage for further disruption. Other times it can be used to cancel dashes, such as Lee Sin Q or Zack's Slingshot. So whether it be buffing your fed carries or shutting down the enemy's fed ones, Lulu is the premier enchanter on this patch, so do yourself the favor of picking her up for free low.
Ooh, I've never been here before.
To finish off our list, Lux has been rising in popularity since her buffs a few patches ago, and that's not just because she's fun to play. She's also just super strong at the moment, countering most meta supports, while also synergizing really well with the current meta ADCs. Q doubles as either a catching tool or to peel threats from yourself and your carries. W's AoE shield can have a huge impact on fights, especially once you factor in applying Ardent Sensor to your entire team. E can be used to scout areas with no vision before face checking, and it gives even more peel, forcing enemies to push through the crippling slow if they want to reach your teammates. Just remember not to pop it too early to get maximum value out of its slowing field. While her kit is pretty supporty, Lux is still a mage, and her ult is here just to provide a huge burst of damage. If you land a Q, throw out an E and use ult to burst down whoever you caught. While the damage does fall off a bit if you aren't building AP, the early game base damages from Lux's full combo can pretty much one-shot most non-tank targets she lands it on. If you think you're snowballing hard and want to carry the game yourself, mix it up and build a more AP-heavy standard mage build with items like Luden's Echo and early Medjai's and a Void Staff. And before we go, here are the support builds again. And that is it for OP Picker Ban 10.17 edition. Remember to let us know what extra champ you'd ban if you could in the comments below. And make sure to check out our website for more in-depth content and guides that were made by your favorite pro players and streamers. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you want to find me on social, you can everywhere at Daniel Lammerman. And good luck out on the Rift.